It is, yes. Oh, great.
Yes.
The same order as well.
For you, it's yes.
Well, thank you. Good morning, everybody. So today we are here for an early career researcher professional development session, and this session has very less to do with our technical research and all of that, but more to do with all the survival strategies. So we have five panelists who will share their insights. So we have Lena Yarvi from University of Helsinki. She's a professor. Then we have Simone. You already have listened to her keynote, and she did a fantastic job there. She is from École Polytechnique Paris, and she will share her insights. And then we have Toby from University College Dublin, and then we have Lewis from George Mason University, and Chow from University of Hong Kong. So a round of applause for them. So I'll quickly come to all of you. So the first thing which we all sort of struggled, are struggling, and probably the ECRs will be struggling with all of it. So it's more like how to maintain a work-life balance. So I'll start from you, Lina.
Um, how to balance a work life? Yeah. Well, I have to say that I'm probably maybe an unusual academic, so I don't work currently in any extra hours. So I always work from 8 till 4, and I stop working there. And usually I don't work in the evenings. So I think that it's, but I have to say that I didn't do that always. So when I was doing my PhD or postdoc, for sure, then that wasn't the how it was. But what I think it's important is that you have something, some activity. It can be, seeing with your friends, being with your children, you sport, you do something so that you have something some activity that you can do that you forget the work so that you are not thinking of it. I would say that's the one critical thing because if you're thinking the work all the time, then you are also, stuck with the balance is not good in that sense.
Simone, what's your take on it?
Well, I think first of all, we need to acknowledge it's very difficult to make this balance. I think I'm not a good example. I don't really manage it very well. But I would say what really changed the situation for me is I worked, I think, too many hours as a PhD and postdoc. But then I had two children, and they force you to balance your life in a different way because they are just there. You can't work the weekends anymore, and you can't work the evenings. So, if you have some activity or people that force you out of your work, then you don't have a choice. Basically, this is what happened to me. It's a bit exhausting, but it's in this way it works. Yeah.
So that's also about prioritizing tasks.
Yes, I mean it's. Sometimes you don't have the choice, right? So if the kids are there, especially like in the COVID times, you have them at home, or then you can't work. So it's just not possible. And I think the part that you have to then adjust to is to see, okay, this is also good. I don't have to work all the time, and I still achieve. Maybe it's the point that where you admit to yourself that you can't achieve as much as you did before. So now there's other things in your life that need your attention, and this, yeah, is also a positive effect.
That's wonderful to know. Toby, what's your take on it? I think it's on.
Okay. Yeah. So also, I think yes. For me, I think we also have. I'm not going to sound like yes, this guy is balancing everything. Yeah. Yeah. But what I've observed is uh, uh, it's actually fluctuates depending on your state, the state on your career. So, as a PhD student, I would say I had that work-life balance because I was partly single. Okay, so during the PhD, I got married, so that's changed a bit. Then going to end of my PhD, I got a daughter, and then to my postdoc, I have one more son. Now, as an assistant professor, I have another son. So, so what I've observed is along this path, the mix actually varies. But as a PhD student, it was very easy for me because I just have to join a team of football lovers. So every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we will definitely go and play football, no matter the deadline, or well, not no matter, but as much as we can, as much as we can accommodate, we go out, we play football, and I was little more fitter than I am now because so yeah, so then that changed a little bit when other family responsibility comes in, and like she actually said, you definitely have to get to a point where you would tell yourself and admit it that yes, I cannot be as engaged with my work as I was when I was single, when I have no child and all of that. So eventually we have to like uh, be mentally ready for all this, and as much as possible leverage on groups that will take you out. As academics, we are always tempted to stay with our computers, but if you have group that will definitely force you out of your space, yeah, you should join them and leverage these social opportunities, socialization opportunities.
That's really good to know. Lewis, I have a slightly different question for you, but related to this. So, it's also important to say no to certain requests, and that is also one of the important aspects of how do you manage time. Because a lot of times we are stuck with things that probably we didn't say no to, and now we are stuck. So, and then now we are stuck in a situation where we are unable to manage time. And so, how it's important and how do you prioritize things and how do you say no, or like how important it is to say no to certain requests, and how do you prioritize such tasks?
It's a hard question. I guess the problem is that there's like n plus 10 things you can do, where n is the capacity to do things, and 10 is our some infinite amount of things. And people are always asking, there's an infinite amount of things people are asking you to do, or close enough to it. Um, it's I struggle with it. I don't say I have an answer with it, especially as new faculty. You kind of want people to like you and welcome you with open arms into a new institution. Um, what has sort of worked for me is sort of think about what are the metrics that are sort of judged on, and try to align the things I say yes to those. Um, which usually means I don't get to do as much sort of outreach or participate in, like outside of service panels and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a big part of it. At the same time, I took a meeting today at 1 a.m. that I should have said no to, so I don't know that I'm doing particularly well. And I'm curious about Lena, what your outside activity, non-academic activity was. Mine is baking. What you mentioned something, but I'm just so curious.
I have also a small child, 6-year-old, but besides that, I do quite a lot of sports. So I swim and run and exercise.
I have the same question for you, Chow. How do you prioritize tasks and how do you say no to certain requests which are probably not on your priority list?
First, I have to do this almost every day, every month, because we know we have to highlight incoming deadlines and make a preparation arrangement to that. And also, I think as a early career researchers or even PhD students, I always encourage them to have a long-term this kind of vision and also plan. I.e., what you are doing right now, you have to have this kind of plan for the next 3 years. So you know this is matters for your career. So especially for PhD students, probably they don't only focus on their PhD study, but when they approach the graduation seasons, they just feel like, well, I should find a job and what kind of job I want to do. Actually, you should prepare this quite a long time before that. And also, I'm kind of person very focused on my work. I just really concentrate on my work. When I start feeling I'm already checked the WhatsApp, the Googles, and I will stop to do the work and go home. And also I think as a PhD student and also the early career researchers, you have to really to know how to do this kind of multiple task management. Everyone only have 24 hours, so you need to make a life and work balance. My tips is I'm early bird type person, so very often my students got my email around 5 a.m. Right? Yeah. But and normally I start early to do my work, but then I told myself, and every day I have 30 minutes to 1 hour this kind of early morning exercise. And also I try to have 1 or 2 days off per week from my work. So I go hiking very often. If you have my social media, you know I'm always doing this kind of exercise. Thank you.
That's wonderful to know. So basically, what we understood that you need to have sort of some activity outside your work where you will be able to find some sort of comfort, relaxation, or passion, or something like that. So probably that's gonna help, and also maybe a to-do list and prioritizing what you should do first, and that way you will be able to save some amount of time, and that will help you to sort of balance the work and life when you are into academics. So that brings me to my second question. How do you make yourself comfortable with the fact that sometimes we might feel saturated while doing research? Or, like, what are some of the strategies that you generally imbibe to not feel saturated in research? So, I'd love to hear your take, Lena.
Yeah, I mean that's also a difficult question because usually, at least, I feel saturated when I have deadlines getting closer and so on. So, but what I usually, even though if you feel like if you have a feeling that okay that you are working with something and you have a, let's say, deadline coming, and you are thinking that okay, now I need to that oh, this is so I need to now do this, I need to work at least 10 hours in a row in order to able to get this done. But at least my experience is that taking some time off, going for a walk for 1 hour, taking 30 minutes, going to gym, whatever, then that usually clarifies your head. At least for me, it helps at least momentarily take the saturation down. But of course, in a way that kind of you don't have a deadline, but rather your working mode is such that you work all the time close to the saturation, then I think that you should really think that what are the approaches when you hit yourself lowered. And I think that again there kind of that you have a not necessarily passion, but you have some activity or something that you do, because I think it's the same thing which helps in that saturation also.
Yeah, I think I'll completely agree to that because that's sort of my process also, like taking small breaks in between works to declutter the mind.
Uh,
How about you, Simone?
Yes, I mean the situation feeling it's also this pressure that you feel like you have to. There's all these multiple tasks that we need to do at the same time, and I think what helps a little bit is to remind yourself that everybody is under this pressure and nobody achieves. I mean, you always think that I don't know, I'm not good enough. I want to do everything 120%, and of course that's not possible. So to admit to yourself, okay, today I will focus on this deadline. I'm not going to answer any emails, or I don't know, maybe I'm supposed to do something very important, other just extra in the morning, think like what is your most important task of the day and achieve it and try to block out the rest, all the noise in your head. Don't think about the rest and just be fine with it. You don't have to be perfect in every task you do all the time. Right? I think that's the main. It can help you to breathe a little bit, which is remind yourself that we all struggle with these things, and in the end, the others will understand that maybe the email will come next week or.
Yeah, so essentially, it's a form of setting boundaries with, again, like coming back to the point of priority. Okay, that's interesting. How about you, Toby?
Yeah, for me, I think it's also important that we try to understand our body. Like when you are fatigued, um, if you pay attention to your body, you would know that if I go on with this, it's either you are making mistakes or you are doing things for like unsolicited longer hours than you should have done. That means our body is telling us, yes, I need a break at this time. And one thing I found out with myself, yes, I do a lot of work around green spaces and all of that. There's one very close to my house, but if I look at the frequency of time with which I go there, it's actually lower than I should go, given the knowledge I have about it. That's because. But later on, I began to listen to my body, and I discovered, like I did a self observation, that whenever I then push myself out of my workspace, listen to my body, understand that yes, this guy is fatigued. And luckily, for me, my older son likes to take a walk. So he said, Daddy, let's take a walk. And if I do not get out of my desk, it's going to drag me and make it out of myself. I use that as an opportunity to then go out. And when I return refreshed and all that. So for me, I think it's actually important for you to know when your body is resisting extra pressure that you're actually putting on it. Because if you continue to work under that pressure, it's good. It's a good skill to kind of work under pressure, but there are certain pressure that your body cannot take anymore, and that if you force it to go beyond the elastic limit, it's likely to break down. So listening to your body is key.
Yeah, I think that's a very important aspect because a lot of times also like when your body is unable to perform properly, you also tend to get sort of like anxiety or something like that. That also stems to some mental health issues, and that can eventually lower your productivity. So that's really important. Thank you for bringing that point. How about you, Luis? What do you think of some of the strategies not to feel saturated?
Um, so Carol mentioned having to-do lists. You can put your social and non-work things on to-do lists too, and put them on your calendar. And I mean, people make fun of me for sending a Google Calendar invite for like a lunch or a dinner, but it works, right? And it makes things very sort of organized. So I kind of operationalize a little bit of that. But I like the idea of checking in with yourself. It's also very important. Um, I, yeah, it's you got to sort of be aware of your own sort of feeling and then sort of yeah. So that's extremely important too.
So essentially, understanding your body and mind really well. How about you, Chow?
Answer is try to do different things per day. So for example, in the morning I do exercise and then I back to work. And during the lunch hour, I probably have lunch together with my friends and colleagues, even students. So we chat. We're not really seriously just only talk about work, probably other things. And then later, when I finish my today's work back home, I'm cooking. So it's also kind of a very relaxing process for me. And after dinner, normally I work for 1 hour, 1 or 2 hours. Then I probably also do some jogging along the seaside. So that is a way. And I mean, you really need to balance life and work and see how to do different kind of things. Not just sit by me. Actually, I read a news article from the sociology people. They mentioned that if you can do more things, or more kind of different things, actually you can reach this kind of balance. At least that is what I'm doing now.
Oh, that's really important. So it's more of imbibing a sort of variation into your schedule so that you don't feel bored or don't feel monotonous or something like that.
Yeah, especially I think the physical exercise is very good because it can give you more energy to your body and relaxes and stress sense. So even I'm traveling, have this kind of conference, I'm still keeping this kind of jogging in the morning. So I think that is a very positive way. At least that is what I'm doing.
Oh, that's excellent. Um, this again, like, oh yes, please.
Could I add just something that came up in my mind about Simone's
Sure.
point earlier about not being perfect in all tasks all the time. I like this sort of point or thought from sort of startup culture called what's the minimum viable product? And often what's the smallest thing you can do that's good enough to ship it to colleagues or something, and you don't always have to make the biggest, best possible thing version of whatever. You can just do it good enough. I guess you're 80% of the way there, and that's one way of doing a little bit less pressure on yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that's also a really good trick to not feel saturated. As you all were discussing about, how do you generally balance your work and life, and then the mention of having the children at home. So, what are some of the tips that you would give to the new parents who are in academics? Like, um, a lot of the early career researchers are probably through this transition in their personal life as well, when probably they're doing a postdoc or they're just joining a new faculty position or something like that. And like, um, it's really a difficult task to balance kids at home and then perform really well at your job. So how do you balance that? That's my question to all the moms and dads in this panel.
Um, yeah, what did I say? I mean, it is challenging for me. What has been critical for me. So I got my child when I had just started my tenure track as an associate professor. So I was in a way in that moment what you mentioned now that you have to achieve, you have to show that you are doing so well, and at the same time you have a small child at home. But I would not have been able to do that without my partner, so the father of my child. So we have quite 50-50 share of taking care of the child, and I think that has been crucial for me. I don't think that I would have in other means I would not have probably have made it. Of course, if you have we don't have very strong support network of our grandparents and so on. They are living in other cities in Finland, so they are not nearby there. So that's why it has been critical to. I mean, of course, you have a strong support network, and you have, for example, a single parent. Of course, then that's also. But it needs that you are not responsible alone. I would say.
Yes, I totally agree with this. And also, it is very, very hard. It is very hard. I mean, you need to acknowledge that the first years you don't sleep. I mean, it's just the fact you don't sleep.
Sorry.
And it's, I mean, this thing of listening to your body and trying to see where are the limits. You go beyond these limits many days, especially if you are, I think this is of course for all parents the case, but it can be especially difficult for if you're the one that makes the baby. So yeah, for the mother to also the body is under different stress. Also during pregnancy already, this is also something that you need to acknowledge that you don't function in the same way as before, and this can be also a bit hard because you are used to being very productive and all this, but it's yeah, you have to admit to yourself where are your boundaries in a new way. Um, but I think in addition to having a support network, so of course if you have if there's a partner, this is very very important, or yeah, there needs to be another support network, friends or family around. I would say also what is very key is to have live in a country with good childcare, because if yeah, I mean and there's a wide variety of course on how much. I mean, maybe the system is that you have grandparents or something that take care of them. But if you don't have this, you need uh, to be able to give the children somewhere where you feel that they like to go there and they are safe and you can go to work without worrying about them. And I would say this is key, and also to maybe this is also different from one society to the other. How is it seen that you're working maybe full time even though you have small children? What do other people say about this? I mean, all these factors also, you need to make yourself new boundaries for this.
Wow, that's really insightful.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to, because I'm going to speak from a slightly different perspective because I'm male, but I would like to acknowledge and appreciate every early career PhD moms. Because it's a different ballgame for them here. So, and I can observe and I understand their large amount of work that is being done there. Thank you to everyone there. Secondly, I will just try to say that it also kind of, you have to mentally tell yourself that you are in a new phase of your life. And more importantly for me, I think that phase is also very important because the upbringing of those children actually is important. Their foundational years is actually important. And you cannot just always try to outsource your responsibility as a parent because eventually it's accumulated to the kind of personality the children they're going to have. So, so my tip is don't beat yourself if you can't do as much as you would have done if you had no child. Given that, yes, it's a new season and important season for that matter in your life. So giving yourself that mental understanding that yes, this is an important and a critical season in my life, and a life is committed to my hands, and I have to ensure that this life is not destroyed at the very foundational state there. So I think that is important. That mental understanding and rest that you give yourself will help you to then make the best use of the hours that you have to yourself. Yeah, so that's my own point.
Yeah, very good points. Lewis and Chow, would you like to add something?
Not the question suitable for me. I'm still single.
Okay.
I don't have any children, but I get there's no mention about different countries having different sort of institutional levels of support for child rearing. Uh, you can ask about these things when you're interviewing and when you're visiting different departments in different places. And it's important because at least in the U.S. it varies a whole lot from place to place, and you can ask faculty how other people in your department manage it. Um, and that's yeah. So even though I don't have children, I'm not thinking about it. So so yeah, it's definitely something that you can probe before you commit to an institution that may not be supportive or maybe very supportive.
Can I add one
Yeah.
more thing here? I think that it's also the situation if you go to work in a different place, be it a different country or just very far from your previous support network, maybe from the grandparents or your friends. That means you have to establish everything from the ground up, and you have to get to know the system. Maybe you don't know how it works with the childcare. And all this is all extra load also on your organizational to-do list. And I think it's also there again important to acknowledge that you can't do as much as you used to, but also don't compare yourself to those that are still in the same city where they used to be. They know the system. Uh, don't be shy to ask for help. Don't be shy to ask them how it works. Maybe, uh, yeah. I think for me, I would say it's very important not to judge yourself in those standards. Remind yourself like that you are up against maybe different challenges. It might be a bit harder because you're from a foreign country or you don't have the grandparents, and I mean,
Yeah.
this adds another level. And if you're in the planning phase, think about it. I mean, if maybe you want to achieve a certain part in your career, it's I would say don't underestimate these double challenges. Maybe see where's your priority, and don't be uh, don't beat yourself up if one doesn't work, right? So if you decide to have the family and then maybe your career goes a bit slower, that's fine. You can't do it all at the same time.
I think I'll take a cue from that. So, a lot of us, we actually move to a different country for our PhD or for the postdoc and all of that. So, how do you initially uh, try to adapt yourself with the changing culture or like the changing norms or regulations of the new country? And how important it is to adapt really quickly? So, um, when you are moving to a new country, or especially for like PhD or postdoc phase, so what could be some of the survival strategies to get adapt to the new culture, new system really quickly?
Um, oh, I need to think. I have to think.
I would say it really depends on the state in your career. If you're PhD, this it's all very exciting, and you usually have. Uh, I mean, it's what happened to me, and I think it's happening to many people. You have a lot of PhD students. There's good support network. It's all very exciting. There's many foreigners. You have exchange, and you can talk about this. Later, maybe when you are faculty, you want to be a bit more professional, and you don't want to ask for so much help, and maybe you don't want to fail, or you have different expectations of yourself. So that's why I would say, as a PhD, it maybe comes a bit more natural, and then later take your time. If you're not adjusting as fast as you expect, that's fine. Take your time and yeah, talk to people, try to engage, of course, with those that are already there and see how they are doing. Maybe find some other foreigners that are there for a longer time, ask them, how did you do it? Maybe if there's tips from the university, that there's networks or some help desk that can give you advice. Um, of course, language is a key part. So if you can try to learn the language, and that helps a lot with all the integration. But it's also sometimes a bit challenging. We work in English, and or maybe not. There's other opportunities, but um, yeah, I would say there's no golden rule on how long it should be.
Okay, maybe let me share some experience because I'm also have another administrative title as Associate Dean of Research. So one of my tasks is to help this kind of early career researchers or staff fellows to have a soft landing at our university and very quickly to boost up their research. So first one is definitely we need to knock this kind of associate dean office door and ask them what is available funding resources, methods from inner university side or external university side. Normally they have this kind of funding list resources. They can very quickly to brief you this kind of information. And second question, you can ask them, okay, so who are the successful awardee of those applicants? Then you can keep on knocking your colleagues' doors and send emails, ask them, and maybe have a cup of coffee or lunch together to start with. And on one hand side, you build up your network, and on the second hand side, you also learn some successful lessons from them, right? And then apart from this research part, you can also engage in the universities this kind of workshop, and sometimes they also organize some the habit workshop like in Hong Kong. We have this kind of Zumba dancing class, and you can very quickly to involve in the local community, right? And get some best friends together, have some hobbies, etc. And also in Hong Kong, we also have this kind of professional institutes. From time to time, they organize CPD events, workshops, lectures. Try to join those events as much as possible, and then you can talk with outside practitioners, industry people, even the government officials, and then you can explore the potential of these kind of opportunities. And sometimes they can also be your best friend. You never know, right? And also sometimes, I mean, in Hong Kong, we also have a lot of these kind of NGOs. You can do the volunteer jobs in your spare time. So then you can have very quickly to involve in the local communities. And also for the postdoc fellows, earlier career researchers, especially postdoc fellows, and you know who is your supervisor, and you can ask your team members, maybe you can have some social gathering, etc. And nowadays we have so many social media, right, ResearchGate. You can very easily to attach someone and ask some questions, etc. Do some preparation before your trip starts. Right?
Yeah, I think that's really insightful. Toby, would you like to add something to it?
Yeah. So I think for me, yeah. So as many people know, so moved, I've changed, I've moved between two countries over the last 7 years. So I was in Hong Kong for my PhD. So and then postdoc, then moved to Thailand. So I've moved across these three continents from Africa, Asia, and Europe. So it's kind of a bit challenging when you kind of change your environment. But one thing I found very easy to do and effective is connecting with the locals. You know, as international student or international researcher, like you always kind of the first thing you look for, which is good and in fact important, is to look for your supporting network, maybe African Student Society or Nigerian Student Society. They are it's very good and yeah, and all of that. But beyond that is for you to understand how the system actually works in that environment. You need to start talking to locals, and people will actually appreciate and open up to you when you approach them. Like you are not within your um, natural amidst your people of the same color and race and all of that. But you actually integrate yourself to the community, just like Charles said. And just to buttress that, I think it's also important, like kind of volunteering outside of the academic, actually help you to integrate into the system, which will then help you to relieve yourself of those cultural shock or whatever shock that you might be faced with. So integrating with the local society is kind of very important.
I think these are some of very important points. I will ask another question related to this. Um, we mostly do research in English, or like there are other languages as well. But for a lot of us, English is not the native language. Like we grew up speaking some other language, and then we are now doing research in English. So how do you develop that proficiency when you are not working in your native language? So it's more like um, how to be professional enough in your non-native language and your working language when you're probably not used to with that language for the first 10, 15, or 20 years of your life. So how do you handle that?
Okay. When I first came to Hong Kong to start my PhD programs, it's really struggling in the first 2 years for me. And my supervisor only talked with me in English, and everything in Hong Kong, the work environment, I mean, everything in English literally. So I have to try my best to improve my English level. And one day I dream, when I dream, I remember I talk in English. I think, oh, that's good. Actually improve a lot. But technically, I think even nowadays, every morning when I wash dishes, when I do some early breakfast, etc. So I will turn on the BBC News, and it's like a background noise, but try to keep on this kind of things going. and then the practice makes perfect. So your English level, at least listening level, will be increased. And the second one is for students, early careers, try to join this kind of international conference and talk everything in English. And this is the environment we have. And also, I think one of the things made my English improve a lot was I was exchange student at Utrecht University in the Netherlands. Stay there for 4 months, and no one can talk in Chinese to me, right? So I have to practice my English daily and every time. So that is things improve a lot. And also for the writing English, in Hong Kong, I was in one of the governmental consultancy project, and in good old days, we have to prepare the report. The report has been revised almost 100 versions, and the length of the English report is about 800 pages. Literally, I have to revise again and again and again and based on their comments. But it's a very suffering process. But now when I look at that, it's really a good process or good practice to improve my written English. So all in all, I think practice makes perfect. Yeah. And if you have a chance to make a good friend who's a native speaker, and so you from time to time you can have a lunch, you can have some social activities with him or her, and in the meantime you can have a chance to practice English.
Any other insights?
Yeah, I could also, I agree that just using the language and not being afraid of using English, even if it's not you go to the conferences and you use it all the time. And don't think whether you have an accent or whether you say something strange. I mean, people understand you, and the only way to do it is by using the language. But also what is, at least at the University of Helsinki, so you can choose when you are a PhD student or postdoc, so you can choose these kind of like writing courses. So there is a course where you learn to write scientific papers in English language. So I think if you have something similar, that can probably help on the written version.
Yeah, I agree with all of this. It's really key to use it. For me, I think what helped a lot is also to read literature, like read books that are not connected to work. So you, at first, it's a bit more difficult than reading in your own language, but with this, you, yeah, also learn another type of language, which is not just the scientific vocabulary. And of course, nowadays, very easy, watch movies or series in English with subtitle in your language, but then, to have a bit more of the feeling of the language, I think that helps a lot.
Yeah. So I think I'll just buttress what Dina said about attending courses on research communication. So I remember, even though I am from Nigeria, so it's English is our lingua franca basically. So I've been writing in English, but maybe not to the level of academic standards. So when I was my PhD, I attended a short program, research communication in English. So in the program, what I learned was the power of free writing. So sometimes, yeah, you just feel like, okay, I understand what I wanted to write, what I want to write, or what I want to say, but I don't know how to say it. But what if you give yourself that space of just writing it anyhow you want without anybody reviewing it? So with that, you then, after you've poured out your mind, because writing is more like pouring out a burden. So once you pour out your mind, then you can then revise it yourself and then begin to then use some grammar check websites and other or apps to then check the way it could have been revised better. Yeah, so for me, I think it's important that we put ourselves through this training and don't wait until the D-Day before so you can start before the mirror and start speaking in English to yourself. You can give a speech to yourself, record it on PowerPoint, listen to yourself speak, and know where to adjust. So it's like training yourself before the day of or when you be in that space of academic contact or wherever, or you want to write a research paper, but you have put yourself through that self training. Yeah, I think that's kind of important.
Hughes, would you like to add something?
Uh, sure. I so my first language is Spanish, but where I'm from, they teach English from kindergarten all the way to yeah, it's mandatory. Um, so it's kind of a different sort of situation, but where I actually struggle a lot is when I'm asked to explain the science that's typically done in English in my native language, and that's I don't know the words. And I feel like I don't know my own language. So it's sort of the opposite problem a little bit. Yeah, and I will add to what some of the colleagues have been saying. If you have colleagues to practice like, presentations with, and people you trust to give you good feedback, I think that's always a good thing. Uh, yeah, it's worked very well for me at least.
Oh, that's wonderful to know. Okay, so I think my next question is specifically for Chow and Toby. So it's because like the question is associated with mostly some of the economically like deprived region or something like that, because like in major parts of Asia and in Africa, there are a lot of countries which probably don't have access to much of resources like for research or for the research communication skills that you were talking about. So if a student is trying to do a PhD from one of those countries and wanting to improve their skills, or they want to just access some resources to know what are the funding sources available, maybe for an exchange program in some other countries, or maybe some courses to develop their English skill or any other technical writing skill, or just any other tools, maybe some statistical tools or something like that. So what are some of the insights that you would share in one such context? Like any sort of repository or anything that you are aware of where there are like all these courses are available, or like there are links, or like any like knowledge bank or anything like that.
Okay. Uh, First, I think, for example, even nowadays, some less developed countries, students of those countries may have very limited resources. But if they check internet, I mean, nowadays, internet is so powerful, and so no matter you want to get a training or you want to find a potential this kind of PhD fellowship, there are plenty of the choices. And for example, in China nowadays we have this One Belt One Road initiative. So most quite top universities in China they welcome the students from Africa, from Middle East, from those countries along the One Belt One Road. So they provide scholarship, even the daily monthly allowance. So they do have can have this kind of PhD training in China, even in Hong Kong, and so that is definitely a golden opportunity for them. And the second one is nowadays, if you go to the YouTube, if you go to many this kind of social media, they have this kind of online courses, lectures. Even for me, I mean, like the TV talk, I really like it, and it can be short, but very informative, and also sometimes it's even an eye opening. So that is why I strongly encourage everyone try to explore this kind of potential useful resources. And also, I mean, you can talk to your seniors. Very often, they may already study in the overseas countries, so they can also let you know this kind of personal experience and also probably some extra internal information, right? So that is quite important.
Okay, yes, I think those are very important points. I will just add that yes, it's also important that you join associations like this, like uh, for example, and also some mailing lists. Yeah, so for example, I got my PhD, uh, how to say it now, the hard part for my PhD position was through the Met Jobs mailing list. There is also crime list. There are so many mailing lists that you could join. Uh, those they share opportunities, they share resource and all of that, and you could easily access them. And as well, like for example, joining IAUC, once I get the newsletter of IAUC, we always read almost immediately to know the latest thing and also some information at the back end. They are very helpful. Some resource at the back end, yeah. And also, I think it's important to leverage social network. I mean, academic mental health for them, like research it. For example, I think one of the difficulties we have back then, I remember my master's thesis, it was in 2012, but my latest citation or reference was maybe 10 years older, like 2000. So there's, I mean, basically they have closed access to academic publications, for example. So one way to navigate that, of course, like I don't think anybody's in that space here, but maybe you can tell somebody, is to connect with people in the global north and kind of build some important connection with them, whereby yes, you can request for people's research on ResearchGate, share like you can make that request. You can ask somebody like you have a list of papers you want to read, and you can send somebody you have a good connection with to help you to access those papers and send them to you. I don't think there's any kind of compromise that is going on with that. I mean, yeah, you're not doing anything wrong if you do that. Like somebody else says the paper on your behalf and send them to you. Yeah, I think it's fine. And basically, it helps you to have the state of the art knowledge and understanding of the course. So overall, I think it's important to build connect. And nowadays, there are now increasing funding opportunities that want to link the global north and the global south researchers. As a matter of fact, some of them want the global south researchers to lead those researches, even though in collaboration with global north colleagues. So I think it's important to stay abreast of all this kind of information via available networks that you should join.
I think I had one more question, but I already got the answer from this discussion already. So my next question was basically how to use some of the social media or like social media networks or something like that, or whether it's important to use that. But I think you all have already mentioned that it's really important to wisely use ResearchGate or something like that, and like all the information that is available in the internet for better skill building or in fact better opportunities. So that was wonderful. um, Now we will try to see if we have any questions from the house. Okay, so we just have time for one question. If anyone wants to ask one quick question.
Okay, I have a small question. How do you actually try to work your way around the deadlines? Like, I think we all have the deadlines of the submission of the paper or like assisting the PI in some more project. So, I mean, everyone has someone a deadlines, right? So, how do you actually work around it?
Uh, um, I think I can't overstate the importance of organization, and I'm a big fan of project management tools. I have very clear sort of stacks of deadlines and to-do lists so that I have nothing kind of sneaks up on me at the end of the day. Sometimes things do anyways because it invites you to a thing that's next week. But so yeah, so that I have to say that probably the best skill I gained throughout my PhD was how to manage those deadlines by sort of keeping them in my face at all times, or at least often enough.
Actually, I'd love to say deadline is deadline. You cannot miss it.
Yeah.
And but more important is, I mean, balance life and work. After several deadlines, after one deadlines, you give yourself 1 or 2 days totally way off from work. So that is a way for me to balance work and life.
I would also say that the planning ahead, because usually deadlines they just don't come at, oh, it's tomorrow, oh, it's 1 week, you know it months in advance. And for example, I have experienced that sometimes a student might, there's a deadline, let's say 1 week from now, and then you send your things to comment for your supervisor, or you try to send it like 1 or 2 days in advance. That's too late. Send it like 3 weeks advance to get comments. So kind of, I think it's all about planning and preparing ahead because they don't come by surprise.
So essentially, that's stopping procrastination. Anyway, uh, thank you guys. It was wonderful knowing all your insights and how you were managing it so successfully. And I'm sure who all are present here, you also got some valuable insights regarding those survival strategies. And this session will be helpful for all of you while you manage your deadlines and work and life and everything in between. So that's the wrap of our session. Thank you all.
I'm also sure that our panelists would be willing to have private conversations over the next couple of hours and day at least before the conference ends. So if you have more questions, you can ask them individually or any of the ECR committee as well. We're happy to facilitate those conversations too.
Thank you, everybody.